or taking place. There are quite many in development. There are some which are about to be launched and starting accrual. So let's start with the one with accrual starting. The first one is Appalaches, who is a trial addressing the question of de-escalation of the aggressivity of the treatment in post-operative setting in breast cancer after surgery for older patients, meaning that above 70, the difficulty is that very often to deliver chemotherapy brings also a certain numbers of side effects which are more difficult to handle or to tolerate in the older population. And so there is a clear wish or interest in trying to waive the burden of chemotherapy and to find some new strategies without with no chemotherapy and replacing chemotherapy with more targeted treatments. That's the aim of Appalaches, which is going to address in a randomized way adjuvant chemotherapy versus no adjuvant chemotherapy, but replaced in this case with a combination of endocrine therapy plus CDK4/6 inhibitors, palbociclib. But that's very important to realize that very often our clinical research is led in groups which are not matching completely with the reality, which gives a skewed image of the routine population that we treat. Especially in cancer, where there is a constant aging of the population that we address in our practice. So these are kind of questions which are difficult to lead in older patients because of comorbidities, because of colliding interests or challenges. To run such trial is very important to show that we need to change and to evolve in terms of how we build clinical research today to much better reality. So that was the case of Appalaches. Another one is at least two trials in development that we will speak about tomorrow. And one is for older patients again, to try to better match the reality of this population and to show that we need to develop innovation differently. That's a trial which will address the combination of endocrine therapy again plus CDK4/6 inhibitors, showing that to go for a stepwise approach, dose escalation strategy is certainly better in terms of protecting or trying to avoid important side effects. And the second one is a trial which wants to address a question also of de-escalation of aggressive treatments, but in the general population, in neoadjuvant setting, in selecting those patients in whom the targeted therapies might be even more active. And so that's a randomized, that's not a randomized, that's a phase 2 trial, which is going to try to address the combination of PARP inhibition and immunotherapy in neoadjuvant setting, chemo-free regimen, for TNBC, triple-negative breast tumors, with BRCA mutations. The main challenge in oncology today is the multiplication of subgroups, of small groups of patients, better defined because of genetic alterations or some specific aspects. So it has expanded considerably the number of potential questions of interest. So it's quite challenging to keep updated and able to address all these questions. So that's the fragmentation of clinical research with smaller numbers for groups of patients of interest. And then the other one is the collaborations at the international level, for which national groups have great roles, but need also collaboration across borders, in which EORTC plays a major role, to my opinion. My first wish is really to change the perception of, or to to change this gap which exists between standard clinical research led in younger adult population compared with a growing segment of the population above 70, for which very often we do not have any research questions led or positioned. So we need to think to make a kind of small revolution in terms of the way we address the things, because it means looking at different endpoints, taking into account other goals in life that older patients may have in terms of functionality, in terms of quality of life. It's repositioning the research question on the patient and with a better match in expectations from the population.